the October live Q&A. Can't believe it's October already, where we will try and answer as many questions as we can from you about e-residency, having a business in Estonia, business banking and taxes. We have some great guests today here. First of all, I'll introduce myself. I'm Hannah, I'm head of content at eResidency.
I'm Raimo, I'm head of partnerships, also from the eResidency team.
Alina, would you like to introduce yourself shortly?
Yes, sure. Good afternoon or morning or evening, everyone. It's me here. I'm the head of client services at Enty, and I'll be delighted to answer your questions, tell you more about Estonia, about starting a business here. Happy to speak and see you all.
And we also have a very special e-resident guest, Arman.
Hi, hello everyone. This is Arman. I'm co-founder of Kovan, and I have been a e-resident like maybe for 5 years. I have found my company Kovan here, and it has been very good so far for me. And I would be happy to answer any question regarding to startups, investment, how to get the people, how to get the networking here. So feel free to drop any questions.
Thank you, everyone. And if you do have questions, you can already start putting them in the Q&A tab, because that's what we will be monitoring. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask Alina to speak a little bit more about Enty and herself and what Enty can help you with.
Yes, thanks a lot once again. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I am here today from Enty. I'm the head of client services. Also here with me is my colleague Pablo. He's our support ninja. He's going to be answering your questions in writing. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them his way. So let's now dive a little bit deeper in, and I'm going to tell you about Enty and how we are helping e-residents to smoothly run their business in Estonia. So we've been on the market for more than 4 years now, serving more than 2,000 clients worldwide. And our goal is to help entrepreneurs coming from different legal and tax backgrounds register and manage their companies in Estonia effortlessly. And having this idea in mind, we've created a solution that will help you set up and handle back office of your company smoothly. When it comes to creating a company in Estonia, your first step would be incorporation. This is something that you can easily do using our services. And we will also happily become your virtual office. That's an essential that you'll need if your company is managed from abroad. That's your official point of contact in Estonia. Then once the company is fully set up and ready to go, your main task will be accounting and tax reporting. This is something that our accountants will gladly do for you. Then when you are already running, you might need some legal assistance. For example, you'd like to change the company name or add a new director to the company or sell the shares of a company. This is when you'll need a helping hand of a skilled lawyer, and you can ask for help from us. Now, when it comes to the back office, that's all those small daily tasks that you are doing as a businessman. For example, invoicing, accounting, contract management, finance management. That's what we already thought of for you. So with Enty, you can generate contracts and legal templates and e-sign them with your counterparties, create invoices with fully customizable invoices with online payment links to let your customers pay you online with any preferred method. You can use our nice and complete finance dashboard where you can connect your bank account and see your transactions categorized real time, get a financial forecast, see how you spend or earn money, and understand the health of your business financially. And what we like the most is that all these services are interconnected and automated. By saying that, I mean that, for example, when you issue an invoice in the invoicing, it will end up in the accounting and will be ready to be included in the accounting report. Or if you upload a document and link it to a transaction in finances, it will also be forwarded automatically to your accountants to form and prepare the report for you. And on the next slide, you'll see our, could you please? Okay, thanks a lot. You'll see a QR code which you can scan and get a consultation with us, during which we'll be happy to catch up with you, answer your questions, tell you more about our services and how we can help you solve your business questions and how we can be of help. That's more or less it from my side for now.
Thanks, Alina. And yes, if you do have questions for Alina and also for her colleague Pablo about anything she's just said or any questions you have that might relate to that, please put them in the Q&A tab, as we will be answering them both in writing and verbally during the course of this webinar. Okay, so what we'll cover today, the webinar will be in 3 parts. The first part, I will present to you a few slides on becoming an e-resident, so what it is, the eligibility criteria and the application process. My colleague Raimo will then take over and present on starting a company and business banking. And then I'll come back at the end and talk a little bit about taxes. After each slide presentation, we'll answer some questions. But as I've said a few times already, you can already start putting your questions in and we will be answering them throughout as well. One more thing I just want to note is that if you do get invited to any WhatsApp groups or Telegram groups or anything by people in the chat, they're not official from our program. They are very helpful ways of meeting other e-residents and sometimes service providers and connecting with other business owners. But just make sure that you understand that they're not official e-residency channels. Those you can find on our website, or by signing up to our newsletter or following our social media accounts. Thank you. Okay, so let's get started by answering the question, what is e-residency? So e-residency is a digital identity that provides you with access to Estonian e-services, makes it possible to make secure digital signatures, and also start a company in Estonia and in the European Union. It also gives you access to a global community of entrepreneurs, which is a huge benefit to becoming an e-resident, which I will talk about a little bit more later. It's also important to understand, though, what e-residency is not. It's not a travel document, and it's not giving you any rights of citizenship or a visa or residence permit in Estonia. It's purely a digital identity. E-residency is also not a tax residency, and it won't exempt you from your tax responsibilities, both personally in your country of tax residence and also your company as well, because there may be international tax implications running a cross-border business, which we will cover in the last part of this webinar. E-residency doesn't guarantee you a business bank account or a personal bank account. These are given solely at the discretion of banks and fintechs and other financial service providers as private companies. And we will talk about business banking in the second part of this presentation, because we know that it is a big topic amongst e-residents. So who can apply for e-residency? E-residency is granted to you individually. Sometimes there's a bit of confusion that it's, that it's given to your business, but actually you apply as an individual and you receive the status as an individual. It's a legal status that the Estonian government gives to foreigners. You should have a substantial interest in using Estonian e-services and starting a company here. It's not open for Estonian citizens or residents of Estonia, of course, because we have our own very similar versions of the ID. And there are restrictions on new applications from Russian or Belarusian citizens since 2022. A new point here that we need to highlight as well. There is proposed legislation currently being considered by Parliament to extend restrictions on new applications from citizens of countries without a bilateral cooperation framework on justice, security, and law enforcement. And here what we mean are countries where there is a higher risk of money laundering, counterterrorism financing, and other banking regulation risks. So if you are a citizen of a country and you live there as well, where you already know that there are problems around those topics, where you may have already found it difficult to get banking accounts because you are a citizen of that country. Just be aware that possibly starting as early as January 2025, it will be very difficult for you to apply for e-residency unless you fall under some of the exemptions. There is more information on this topic on our blog at the moment, and at the end of the presentation, I'll direct you to a link to that blog post so you can read more. But just so you're aware. So why become an e-resident? Main motivation for the majority of e-residents is to register an EU-based company 100% online from anywhere. And this gives you the opportunity to digitally sign documents to the highest EIDAS, which is the European regulation on electronic signatures standards. And secure digital electronic signatures, or qualified electronic signatures as they're called, are equivalent to handwritten and are strong in terms of trustworthiness as well. As an e-resident, you can run your business remotely with 24/7 secure access to Estonian e-services. And as I mentioned before, you're joining a community of, I think it's almost 120,000 like-minded people from over 170 countries, which is a big benefit as an entrepreneur with a business in a different country, for sure. Let's go through the timeline. So the first thing you'll need to do to become an e-resident is apply online. You must choose your pickup location where you're going to actually go and pick up your card, and you'll pay the state fee. At the moment, the state fee is 100 euros if you pick it up in Estonia, 120 euros if you pick it up at an Estonian embassy, of which there are over 40 worldwide. In the next slide, I'll share some positive news about new pickup locations that are coming soon. But maybe I'll start with the slightly bad news that the state fee is actually rising from the 1st of January to 150 euros. So if you need to renew your card in the next few months, or if you're thinking about applying and wasn't maybe not sure whether to do it until after the new year, recommend doing it now, because you'll save at least 50 euros, or at least 30 euros anyway. So once you've applied online, you'll need to wait for approval. The Police and Border Guard here in Estonia will do an identity check and background checks on you. And then once they have approved your application, they'll send your card for printing and organize its delivery, whether it's to a Police and Border Guard office here in Estonia or whether it's to an embassy overseas. You need to pick up your card in person. This is a very important point. It can't be sent to you in the mail. You can't send someone else to pick it up for you. You have to show up in person. You have to give your fingerprints. You have to present your ID that you used in your application and prove that you are who you say you are and that they are giving the document to the right person. And finally, you have the card, you can set it up, you can activate it, and you can already install DigiDoc, start making digital signatures and start your company as basically within 24 hours of getting the card. The whole procedure here takes between 3 and 8 weeks, depending on where you are, depending on where you pick it up, and also depending on how completely you fill in your application. It's not unusual for the Police and Border Guard to ask further questions, especially if you haven't provided really full answers in your application. So I recommend, providing as many details as possible as you can in your initial online application, because that will actually end up saving you time in the long run. So I mentioned some good news that's come. So here are 3 new mobile pickup points that are being added to the application form on the 1st of November this year. So next week. Buenos Aires in Argentina, Sao Paulo in Brazil, and Bangkok in Thailand. So it's starting to look a little bit less empty in a few places around the world, which is great news. These are going to be these are going to be mobile pickup points. So they're not going to be like permanently open. A member of the Police and Border Guard will be traveling there once every 2 to 3 months and handing out the cards on specified days. So if you do pick these pickup points, You may just need to have a little bit of patience about when the date is and maybe a little bit of flexibility in your schedule, but they'll give you plenty of time to organize that. So that's some good news for hopefully for some of you online today. So yeah, as I mentioned, there's over 40 locations. If you do need to change your pickup location during the application process, there will be change fees applied, which differ depending on sort of the direction of change. And if you need to travel to pick up your card in another country, you must make sure that you have the legal right to enter. Just going there to pick up your e-residency card is not a reason for a visa. So make sure you have that right, either as a holiday visa or some other working visa, something like this. Okay, I'm going to stop here and we're going to just have a look into the Q&A tab. But while we're having a look, Arman, maybe I will ask you to introduce yourself in a bit more detail and share your e-residency story for the audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for all that brief, Hannah. It was very helpful, and like I've just seen like timeline like I have done personally like years ago while you were telling the application process. So I can tell a bit about the story of Kovan, who we are, what we did, why e-residency, and right now I'm a resident. Like it was a change from e-resident to resident for me in the last year. And I can maybe give some more information about startups, specific to startups, and how it helps to be e-resident when you're a startup. So we are Kovan. So what we do is we are a data and AI platform. We get companies, AI products work better and aligned with real life needs requirements. So we work with like enterprises. We get their AI models, evaluate their AI outputs, and by providing a feedback loop to them, they can improve their AI accuracy at least by 10%. So this is what we do. And for e-residency, like it was pandemic in 2021. And we were discussing ideas about my co-founder, Matt, about like founding the company, doing the business that we do, which is data. And as it is data business, we were like unable to do it if we were in Turkey, because basically we are processing other companies' data. And if we found a company in the European Union, that would be very good benefit. And there were only one option, which is Estonia, who enabled us to like incorporate without even traveling, and which was impossible back then because it was pandemic. So only option was to find out like a country like, who can make us do it remotely. So as Hannah mentioned, like we have gone through this application stage, and we made sure to fill the application just like we are getting an investment from VC. Like it was very thorough, and we've told them about the business plan, how we are thinking to scale the company. Then it was fast process. We get the e-residency card. Then we found the company. And this was like the basic story of like how it went. And now I just want to also touch some points about like being a startup and like e-residence, because like a regular business and a startup, I think two different story. And then we have the e-residency. So the first thing first, like the investment and legal processes. So the funny thing is we found the company in like, I think 15 of April, 2021. Then we get our first investment in June, and we were still in Istanbul, sitting in our homes. And I just found out a very good legal office, which was in Legal 500, and just had a very short Zoom call with them, told them about our Turkish investors, and they did it in a breeze, which took like maybe a month. And we didn't pay like loads of money. And this is one thing very important. Like if you're a startup and you are in need of lots of capital in the early days, and if you incorporate in Estonia, there are lots of people who are very much focused on like growth of small startup companies. And for the legal part, you will have plenty of support and things will be very fast. So I think this is one of the important things. The other thing is the network itself. So I've only moved to Estonia when it was necessary. Like in the first 1.5 years, I stayed in Istanbul, like to get the first clients. to validate the problem that we're solving. Then we decided to come to Estonia because back then I was also reading some articles, also talking to people about like plans of Estonia in AI field. And I thought like there could be some opportunity. Then when I moved here, I had literally, I had no idea about like who is doing what. I knew no one. But then like first eResidency folks, then like Enterprise Estonia, which is like another agency there. And they also started to talk with me. Like I wasn't even started the conversation. So people have started to reach out to me, and we've just talked about what we can do as business, so we can like contribute to Estonian economy here. So that made me a resident here. And the network here is very valuable. Once you start to know like few people, suddenly you know all the people in Estonia. So that was very good for a startup because you have to move fast anyway. You don't have like plenty of time while you're doing anything. That was second thing. And the other thing is like daily operations of any business, like accounting, legal stuffs, and of course signatures, like legal signatures, POAs. So those things are like very easy to do because you have like very simple card which is able to sign any document you like. And you are able to work with accounting companies who are directly connected to your bank accounts, which is very important because as founder, you don't want to waste your time with like manual stuffs in daily operations. So I think for those three things, if you are a startup and if you have very good purpose to operate in the European Union, Estonia is like very fast way to do it. Of course, there are many other countries that we were also discussing back then, but if you want to do it fast, and if you want to get to a network where like when lots of valuable people are who are trying to create value, I think Estonia is very good, like in a very good spot for small startup companies, I would say. And so those are roughly like what I come to my mind. Like Hannah, maybe if you have some questions or like want me to open up new topics, just send me.
Thank you. And I think you actually already have some fans in the chat, Arman, who are asking you about the investment process. So maybe you can have a look in there and see if you can help those people. In the meantime, I'll just answer a few quick questions about the residency process, and then we'll move on to the business formation stuff. Someone said, can I already choose those new locations? From the 1st of November, that's when they'll be live. So if you're thinking about applying, maybe wait until then if one of those locations is closer for you. And someone else asked about Qatar and the possibility of a pickup point there. At the moment, there's no plans for Qatar. I'm sorry about that. I think that...
there are a lot of questions already related to companies and taxes. So
yes, so maybe we could move on. And someone just very quickly, the pickup location in Sao Paulo, if you have already chosen another one, you can change it. Just reach out to your current, the pickup location you already chose. And you may need to pay a little fee, but it should be possible to change it. But just ask your current pickup location. Okay, Raimo, let's move on to the business stuff.
So yes, maybe for the beginning, I asked from Alina in Enty, what's your experience as you have helped to create thousands of businesses? Like, what are usually the main motivations or reasons entrepreneurs decide to establish their company with eResidency in Estonia?
From what we hear from our customers, what they like the most is a very low level of bureaucracy. Also, the e-residency itself, they like it. The fact that like just using the card, you can access any governmental website and sign everything. You don't need to visit notaries or sign papers or send something to a remote location by courier. People love it very much. Also, they like that, like we have some customers, of course, who are not from Europe, and they like that using e-residency, they can set up a business and start and grow their business in Europe. So expand the markets and have more customers coming to their business from Europe. And also, of course, Estonia is a European country, wide jurisdiction, which gives people trust in this beautiful country. And I think that these would be the most important and most popular things that we hear from. And of course, the favorable tax structure. That's what we hear the most from our customers.
Thanks. So it all sounds very familiar also for us if we get an feedback from e-residents that what are the reasons. So definitely first thing is the ease of actually getting started and running the business. The bureaucracy level is very low. Most of our team members have had or have at least one company, so we have experienced it on our own as well, and it is truly not taking too much time. We're gonna have a short slide about it later as well, probably comparing the time spent on admin. Then the second thing is trust. As everything is signed and approved digitally, then it has to be secure and it has the highest security levels possible in the EU. So, but at the same time, it's also transparent, and the data structures behind the whole logic are built up safe and secure way. For example, Estonian data is backed up not even in Estonia, but also in data embassy in Luxembourg. So your company's official state data will be there as well. And then, of course, the opportunities that were already briefly covered by Arman, but especially for the startups, but also other kind of entrepreneurs. Once you get started and start developing your company, raising investments, finding new business partners, then there are a lot of opportunities available. Either they are grants or programs that are opened also to e-resident companies, or just pretty quick access to the ecosystem and the service providers and the community members out there. And then, of course, the community. It's more than 100,000 people all around the world. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of bright minds. We have seen more and more this community aspect coming to life, and people finding new business partners, just good friends, and also investors, mentors. So this community aspect has become really, really important nowadays. Now, yeah, I'm not going to talk about it a lot. We have even a very thorough overview on our website and blog as well, comparing us with other jurisdictions. But a couple of things I would like to point out definitely is that once you have got your e-residency, then actually getting started goes pretty quickly. It can be a matter of hours, not even the days. And then one thing I would like to point out is that you don't need a local director. So you need to appoint a contact person that I'm going to talk about later. But all in all, you are in charge of your business when you have it in Estonia. Then the share capital is very low, and then you can run all the business operations digitally without sending any papers. And the last row, based on some research we have found out and done, then time you need to spend on filing taxes on reports is considerably smaller compared to many other countries. And if you have a good service provider like Enty or other similar companies, then it goes even quicker. Now, basically, there are, as usually, the life cycle has the 3 steps. First of all, the establishing part. If you choose to go with a service provider, then they help you with that, also preparing all the necessary documents and getting started in the e-business register, so that basically you can go either set up everything independently or use the help of service provider, and they make the preparations, and you go and confirm, sign, and getting started basically. So what we usually do is say that if you pick up your card in the embassy, then basically you can sit down to the cafe next to the embassy, start downloading the software and establishing a company right away. Then is the running part, which is basically the day-to-day tasks you need to do. Maybe report some tax declarations, change something in the business registry, exactly the things that Arina explained before. It can be done also independently if you want to, or if you can do, or your service provider can help with it. And also, again, your digital signature is the key that helps to make it happen. In a way that you are not dependent on the location you are or the time zone you are working. And then the growing part, which means that once if you need to hire someone in Estonia, we have some good resources to finding out how to do it, which companies to use, what are the best practices. Also, if you would like to join any acceleration programs, find funding options, or you have the business that needs a license, then how to obtain one. So the growing part is definitely also done pretty automated and straightforward. Now, if you are starting a company as an e-resident in Estonia, it's very likely that you and or your co-founders are not physically in Estonia. And in that case, there is one mandatory service you need in Estonia, which is a contact person. This is basically a person that is obliged to receive something sent you on paper. If Estonian state for some strange reason sends you something on paper, it may happen. So they are the ones who are obliged to receive it and send it to you wherever you actually are. So basically, if you are outside of Estonia, you need to have a contact person. And this is a licensed business in Estonia. Not a random friend in Estonia can act as your contact person unless he or she is a co-founder. But companies like Enty or others in our e-Residency marketplace that has a license for that, which is regulated by Estonian Financial Intelligence Unit, can provide that service. And the good news is that the same companies that usually provide contact service are also the ones that can help you with accounting, to some extent legal advice, admin support. So basically you can have a one-stop shop kind of service provider, or you can pick different service providers for different services. And from our marketplace, in addition to those contact person and accounting companies, you can also find the fintechs and banks that are welcoming e-residents, and also other different services that you may need to administer and run your business, like legal and tax advice, to some extent marketing and PR, also co-working opportunities and so on. So I recommend you to check out Marketplace, use the filters and use the comparison options there, and contact you service providers that you think could be the best fit for you. Then from our website, you can find also a subsite called Funding Portal, which is basically best source in English for finding out what kind of acceleration incubation programs are out there, and funds, as well as investment funds are available there. So it's like a good selection of grants, loans, programs that you can contact you or to read more about. Maybe your company would be a great fit to apply for a funding or apply for a place in the program. And we are updating it also all the time. But of course, like very recent updates you get straight from the programs. And we are always working on expanding the list of opportunities available there.
I think it's actually more than 66 now.
It's more than 66 now, yes. And I know that we are currently, one of our colleagues is working on adding one or several ones. And yes, mostly e-residents decide to incorporate private limited company or OÜ in Estonian, which is the most popular business form. There can be one or several founders. Shareholders' liability is limited. So basically, it's the best way for a small and micro company, and also mostly the startups are OÜs. But also as an e-resident, you can incorporate a non-profit organization. I saw in chat a couple of questions. So we have seen more and more of them. It's just you need to be sure that the main goal of this organization is non-profit. So for profit, you still need to have the private limited company. So only thing you cannot do is you cannot register yourself in Estonia as a sole trader, which would be a headache anyway compared to having a company.
And just one thing, on the not-for-profit side of things, there is a really good blog post on our blog. So if you just like go on our website and search, I think non-profit, you'll find the blog post, and that will give you a full guide on how to start and what you need to know.
And we have some secret powers in the team also. So if you have any more specific questions related to NPOs and you turn to our support, you may get a pretty good answer because we have people who know a lot about NPOs. Now, the costs, it all depends on your needs, of course, and what kind of company are you establishing, with which service provider are you going to use. But there are some fixed fees you need to be aware of. Then the first thing is that if you apply for e-Residency, there is a state fee. Currently, it's either 100 or 120 euros, depending on the location. But since 2025, it will be a flat fee, 150 euros for all the locations you are going to pick up.
It might include the extra 20. We're still waiting on that one. So
Okay.
it's from 150.
From
but
150.
we will confirm as soon as we know the correct amounts.
But so if you are still considering and thinking, then if you have made your decision, make your application this year, it's sure that it will be less expensive than next year. And then state fee for registering private limited company is 265 euros. Depending on the service provider, they add their service fee there, or maybe not. Depends on the service provider. Then the contact person services, if you are going to use them separately, like only buy this service from certain service provider, it's on average 200 to 400 euros a year, can be more. In some rare cases, it can be less as well, but on average. And also accounting very roughly is around 50, 70 euros a month. Again, if you have only few transactions, there are some companies that have built up the pricing based on the number of invoices, or they have very cheap packages. And then, of course, if you are doing, let's say, e-commerce and you have a lot of transactions every month, you can expect accounting to be more expensive. So very roughly, the total first year costs would be around 600 euros if you do a lot independently. Maybe need to Google more, do your operations in the business register independently. And if you have a bit more accounting support and legal and admin support needed by the service provider, it's around double the cost. And then business banking, a very common question by e-residents. There are 3 legally acceptable solutions. Either to have a business banking account in Estonian bank, in other European Economic Zone bank, or to use the fintech, the electronic money institution. So majority of e-resident companies prefer and actually can open account in the fintech company. The most well-known examples are Wise and Revolut, probably. So you can open your account online. There is a wide choice of them. The fees for having account there and for transactions and for FX are pretty affordable usually. But at the same time, they are not credit institutions or banks, so they do not give you loans or other credit services. But then again, in most of the cases, this is the way to go for e-resident companies. And for Estonian banks, you need to have a very clear business ties to Estonia, which means you have office or people here, or a significant amount of business takes place here. And also, if you have already good connections or good experience and a long customer history in some of the other banks in the European Economic Zone, maybe with your local companies, you can also turn to your local bank and ask whether they are okay to open an account also for your Estonian company. But mostly, fintech is the way to go. And you get the slides later as well. You can see the comparison, and also you can find all those companies mentioned here in our marketplace. They may have restrictions to certain regions. They may have restrictions to certain industries. But we recommend you check out more from our marketplace and also from our knowledge base, where you can find the business banking comparison table. And also there are several payment gateway providers for those who are planning to open their own web shop or other like SaaS product, let's say, where you have a lot of transactions need to be processed. Yes.
You can take a breather, Raimo. Alina, are there any questions? Are there any questions that would be good to bring out, do you think, in the Q&A?
There are quite a few. Well, there are so many of them. I don't have enough time to answer each of them in writing, but there are quite a few of them. I like the question about the possibilities of reinvestments from the company in Estonia.
Yep.
That's what people ask us a lot. So anything that you earn, you can reinvest. Reinvested profits are not taxable as of now. And you can use different vehicles to complete your reinvestment process. From what we see right now, people are mostly interested to use platforms like interactive brokers or like platforms to manage their cash flow and not to lose any pound, any penny. So you can consider this option, or if you have something certain on your mind, like some certain scenarios that you'd like to fulfill, but you don't know how this should be completed within the company, you can also contact us and we'll see how to go about exactly your very case.
I'll just add as well that there are a couple of Estonian startups, well, scale-ups now, offering investment services, Lightyear and Grunfin. But you do need to be a resident of the European Economic Area to, like, even if your company is Estonian, you yourself need to be from Europe. So that could be another option. And if you have a bank account with some of the Estonian banks as well, they also have quite a big range of investment accounts as part of their offerings. And from what I understand, some of the fintechs are starting to do this as well. I think Revolut and other EMIs are also starting their own brokerage accounts as well.
Yes, with Revolut, I believe it is possible to invest already now. Actually, here's a question, another question for you, Alina. What is your unique selling proposition compared to your competitors?
I would say that's a good question, and people like to ask this question to us. I would say that that would be our customer-centric approach. We are trying to make an accent on that and help each customer individually. Like, we try to understand your needs in a detailed way to see how to help you and try to be more proactive to help your business grow and to spend less time, on all the administration, on taxes and everything. So trying to take a step forward and help you minimize, all the hassle that you have when running your business. Well, we have a free market in Estonia, and each provider has their own pluses or minuses, but I would say that ours is that customer-centric approach. For me, that's at least.
Thanks, Alina. And Arman, there's quite a good question here for you because you've done this yourself. What is the simplest way for a startup to establish a physical presence in Estonia, like by getting an office or representation?
So I think the first thing is like coming to Estonia with a purpose, like maybe having a client, or like there were in the funding opportunities, a couple of accelerated programs like Enty and some others, like I forgot the names. But so first I would try to enroll one of those, like get the company in it, and probably in the first 3 months they give you like a free office, so benefit from it. So meanwhile, like there are a couple of like co-working spaces which are providing all the necessary things, like all the office requirements, like internet, like the monthly collaboration meetings, all the dinners, etc. They are also in it. So first I would go for an accelerated program or like a collaborative group, join into them, use the free alternatives. And meanwhile, it's pretty straightforward to like have a deal with an office provider. So as Kovan, like we were using I think we tried many of them. I think they're all good. And only thing is just search for the other companies, other people who you might collaborate with, and just to get yourself another network. So that would be my suggestion. The office space are all good. Like they're very high quality. Internet is very good. So you would be very comfortable with any choice you make.
Just maybe one comment. What we have seen recently a couple of times, I just had a visitor yesterday as well, that startup founders or the founders who are like seriously planning to establish something physically here, either to set up an office here or relocate themselves here before actually making that decision. They go to the field trip, basically meet the potential partners, or if they're, I don't know, connected to research and science, meet the universities, try to understand the landscape, feel the beat of the city, basically, and then basically already build up some connections here, and then based on that make the final decision whether it makes sense for them to relocate themselves here or not, to establish here and hire people here or not so much. So probably like spending this extra money and time to actually visit Tallinn and have a pre-agreed meetings here would probably make sense.
And
Yeah,
just adding, and I just wanted to add as well that there are a couple of really good times to come to Estonia to test the waters. One is in January, even though it's very cold, to go to Tartu Startup Day. Another is in May to come to Latitude in Tallinn, and you'll be able to meet tons of people, investors, startup founders, local business people. So those 2 times of year are things that you should look out for and come to those conferences. Arman, sorry, please go on.
Yeah, no worries. I was also going to add the Latitude event.
Okay.
And like even if your business do not have potential to, let's say, sell the product itself to Estonia, but the investor network is something different than the market itself. So you can still come to Tallinn, like actually handshake with those people. It helps. Why it helps? Because in the first months we try to reach out to them and in online spaces, but like you might not get the responses that you like without like a good reference, without shaking hands of people. So do it. Like come to Estonia, come to Tallinn, or Tartu is like good alternative as well. And first meet people, then decide whether it is good move to come to Estonia full time or not.
And if you do come, let us know, because we might be able to connect you with the right people as well in our networks. Okay, I'm going to continue because we want to get through the tax part. Someone is actually asking, is there a final decision to tax corporate profits from the government, or still in debate? It is still in debate. I will talk about it in my section, and I did cover it in the blog post about changes next year. So if you want to read more about it already, you can have a look on our blog. Right. So taxes, extremely complex, especially when we're talking about international business and doing business in different countries where there are different tax rules, different tax treaties, different regional tax agreements, and different tax rates. So I'm going to, on this slide, just go through the 4 sort of main taxes you'll need to be aware of. There might be more, but they would be in very specific situations. So the first type of tax is personal income tax. And generally speaking, you will declare this and pay it where you are tax resident. So if you're an e-resident of Estonia and you don't live in Estonia, you will continue paying your own personal tax in the country where you're a tax resident, which is probably where you live. The second type of tax is corporate income tax. Generally speaking, you will declare corporate income tax in the country where your company is registered or has permanent establishment. For e-residents, I'm going to go through this in a little bit more detail in the next slide. The third type of taxes to be aware of are social taxes, and these could also be known as pensions, superannuation, employment contributions, unemployment contributions, all of those types of things that make up your future health package. Generally speaking, these are paid, or these are, sorry, declared where your employees are located. So if you're the only employee of your company, you will also declare your own social taxes in the country where you're tax resident. And finally, value-added taxes are VAT, and I'm specifically talking about VAT in the European Union here. There are different VAT and GST jurisdictions around the world, and you'll need to be aware of them if you have customers there, particularly if you have direct consumers there. But in the EU, there are different rules and rates in every European country. But they have tried to streamline the VAT system a little bit so that online sellers can declare just in the EU country where they're VAT registered. And that's due to these OSS one-stop shop and IOSS import one-stop shop schemes. There are thresholds though, so this won't be the case for everyone, particularly if you're selling goods to consumers that are of very high value. Another thing I want to really be clear on, because some people do get confused about this, is that the taxes you pay individually and the taxes your company pays should be treated separately. You're two different entities. You are an individual and your company is another legal entity. So you should always make sure that you have, you know, your own tax sorted on one side. So for example, where you're a tax resident, where you pay your personal income tax, whether you need to pay withholding taxes on dividends in the country where you live, for example, the social taxes, which I mentioned, and of course, VAT as a consumer. This is something that sometimes you might forget about, but actually that is something that we as consumers pay. But on the company side, make sure you understand that your company may have a dual tax residency. So you need to look at tax treaties to make sure that your company is not double taxed. Permanent establishment is a concept that you'll need to know about as well. I'll cover it again in the next slide. Again, double taxation, where you pay corporate income tax will depend on those different concepts I've already mentioned. You'll also need to think about payroll. So the contributions, the social taxes, where do you pay your employee contributions in the world? And you also need to think about VAT registration, because there are different considerations about where you would register for VAT. Just because you have an Estonian company as an e-resident doesn't mean you necessarily want to or need to register for VAT in Estonia. It might actually make sense to register for VAT in the country where you actually do most of your work and operations. And actually the law might require that as well. So where do e-residents pay company taxes? It's the million-dollar question. And unfortunately, I can't give you a perfectly solid answer because every single situation will be different. It will depend on many, many factors. It would depend on where you live, where your employees are, where your suppliers are, where your clients are, where your company assets are. All of those things will be taken into account by a tax authority in several countries to decide this. So the general rule, though, is Estonian company will be automatically registered as a tax resident when it's registered. It could have, if your company has activities in other countries. So if you just say, I'm going to give the German example because it's the most clear cut. If you are a Germany resident and you're doing everything in Germany for your Estonian company and all your clients are in Germany, you have an office in Germany for your Estonian company, intellectual property registered there, these kinds of things. It'll be pretty clear that your company, despite being registered in Estonia, has permanent establishment activities in Germany. So you will need to register that there, and you probably will end up needing to pay taxes, corporate taxes in Germany. E-residency is not tax residency, so it won't exempt your company from foreign tax liabilities, but Estonia does have many double tax treaties to avoid the situation where you would have to pay double tax, so including with Germany, for example. So if you can show to the Estonian tax authorities that you are paying taxes in Germany for your company as you should, it's likely that they will exempt your company here. Okay, so you shouldn't be double taxed, but we do really recommend speaking to a local tax consultant in Estonia, in the country where you live, and getting professional advice because, as I said, it's going to be different for everyone. This is the cheeky part where I suddenly start talking about the benefits of the Estonian tax system, but I promise in the next slide to tell you how you can take advantage of them. We've just heard today that Estonia is now the #1 tax code in the OECD for 11 years running. We were 10 years, but I've literally changed this slide today. So that's 11 years. And the reason is that it has minimal tax regulation, relatively low rates compared to other business jurisdictions around the world. And there's no annual corporate income tax, which means there's no tax on reinvested profits. And there's a 20%, well, 20 over 80 on net distributed profits. So if you pay yourself a dividend as a shareholder, a dividend of 100 euros, you would get 80 of that 100, and the government would get 20. The tax board would get 20. As you can see, there are some little red notes here. So there are some proposed changes that are currently being considered by the Parliament. That would mean there might be from 2026 a very small profit tax of 2%. And that profit tax of 2% will be based on the company's profits in 2025. So looking back a year and paying them. If your company doesn't make any profits in 2025, you will not have to pay that 2% profit tax in 2026. And this security tax package, as it's known, I've covered in the blog post on our blog, and it's supposed to last for 3 years until 2028. So that's something to be aware of. Another thing to be aware of is from the 1st of January 2025, so in a couple of months' time, the distributed profit tax is going up to 22%, something to be aware of. VAT, the rate in Estonia is 22%. This is not so important for most of you because you probably won't be selling to consumers here. And that rate is also going up next year in June. In Estonia, companies must register for VAT as soon as they're earning 40,000 euros per year. And I've already mentioned that there are some regimes around VAT in the EU that simplify tax declarations, VAT declarations. In Estonia, taxes can be declared and paid online, and you really will you can get help from the Estonian Tax Board. They're very helpful. They have an email solely for non-resident taxpayers. I think it's nonresident@emta.ee, and they generally respond within a day or two. And they are very helpful, particularly on the Estonian tax topics. With international taxes, they might also tell you to get specialist advice, but they can generally help with things that relate to Estonia, with double taxation agreements, these kinds of things. How can you actually take advantage of the Estonian tax system because of all the problems I talked about a couple of slides ago around permanent establishment and international double taxation? Well, you'll need to create substance in Estonia. And Raimo and Arman actually kind of mentioned a couple of these things already in relation to banking and also in relation to building a startup here. But these will also, if you do these things, they'll also help you have a really good argument for your company to pay taxes here as well. So renting an office, having employees here, holding board meetings on a regular basis here, spending time in Estonia, a month every 6 months or so, that will help you. Registering assets, whether they're vehicles, property, intellectual property. Relocating, which is easy to do if you're European. And there are other visas if you're from a third country. So there's the startup visa if you have a great startup idea and want to bring that to Estonia to build. There's also a digital nomad visa, which you can look into as well. And on this topic, becoming a digital nomad is actually another good way to continue your company paying taxes in Estonia, because it would be very unlikely that any tax authorities around the world will go after your Estonian company if you're traveling a lot. So that's just another tip on that side of things. On the digital nomad thing, though, one tip I would give you is to keep a tax residency somewhere. Don't be tax residency-less, because it might be really great now to not pay taxes, but in a few years' time, when you settle down and you want to get a mortgage or a bank loan or a business loan for your company or a raise investment, and the other side asks you for your tax forms for the last 5 years and you don't have any, that can actually look pretty bad. So I recommend, even if you find a low tax jurisdiction, to register in and pay your taxes there and declare your taxes on an annual basis. That's just a tip that I think most digital nomads probably don't want to hear, but is good for you in the long run. If you want to learn more about all these topics, we have a page on our website. bringing business to Estonia, that you can discover more about this. And as Raimo already mentioned, I'm just going to say it again, you will get a copy of these slides. Tomorrow you'll get an email with a link to a web page on our website, where you can download the slides, where you can watch previous webinars, videos, and you can give feedback as well. So I mentioned that I wrote a blog post with all the changes that I've mentioned. That's on our blog already now. It was published yesterday. So I recommend having a look at that so that you can get up to speed with the changes that are coming. And they are not all completely confirmed yet. So we are going to keep updating this blog post as more information comes in. So for example, with the countries with new application restrictions, that list of countries is still not confirmed yet. We're still not 100% sure on the countries that will be on that list. So if you see lists of countries anywhere online, don't necessarily believe them just yet, because the government is still deciding on which countries will be on that list. Okay, any questions?
Our friendly colleagues in the chat have been super active and answered most of it. Maybe I still have one question for Arman. As a practicing e-resident, we talked a lot about this building presence in Estonia and finding out taxes, and all in all, like understanding like what are the obligations. What would be your maybe 1 or 2 tips in actually figuring out what the hell do you have to do to have compliant with all the rules? Like, is it more like trusting the service provider, figuring out yourself? What would be your main recommendations to help those who are thinking of it but are probably scared of the unknownness of the situation?
Okay. So I think as a founder, especially if you're a startup, you have lots of investors in your board. So you have like venture capitals. If you have like angel investors, you have more responsibilities compared to any business. So in that sense, I think any co-founder should be aware of basic principles of accounting, like basic principles of like how to increase share capital. So what are like NDAs? What are like sales documents? What are privacy policies? I think you should have like at least understanding of why they are necessary. Then of course you have to delegate those. And either you can choose one from marketplace, as you mentioned, Raimo, or you can do your own research, or you can ask to other like e-residents, other co-founders who they work with so far. I think that's important, but get your hands on it first, I would say, then delegate it to other one. And for doing your business, I think like finding a couple of clients or like test users for whatever you're doing, someone in Estonia is important, because what you have built that's working in another country might need some modification in Estonia. So when we moved to Estonia, I personally, I really tried to find like Estonian clients, and luckily we get some of them, and we managed to sell our solution to them. So which enabled us to like go to their office, talk about like future opportunities. Now for like future work, even I don't have contract, I know like 6 months later there will be one. So I would say like whatever the solution you have, if it is B2C or B2B, just try to bring it to actual people here. And that would be the most important, I think, tip, I would say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, no worries.
All right, I think we're coming to the end now. Thank you very much for joining us today. Please give feedback. You'll get a pop-up to a type form quiz. So if you could fill that in so we can take into your account your feedback, that would be great. If you have further questions, you can ask questions on our subreddit. If you just search eResidency in Reddit, you'll find the official subreddit. In the Facebook group eResidents of Estonia, or you can contact our support. You can find the contact page on our website. And apply if you're ready, and save a few pennies as well, as we already told you today. Here on this page, if you can use this QR code to download already the slides and find recordings of previous webinars. And that's basically all from us. Thank you, Raimo, for joining.
Thanks, always pleasure.
And thank you very much, Arman. How did you feel today?
Yeah, I felt very good. Like as I told before, like while you were telling all the stages, I just like had like flashbacks of those days 3 years ago. So I was very happy. Hopefully, like my point of view was at least helpful for other e-residency thinking people. So thank you for this.
And yeah, it sounded like your timeline was all very short and quick and everything. So you probably flew by and you probably don't even really remember it until someone talks about it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. And Alina, thank you as well. How did you find today?
That was amazing. Many thanks for having me today, and Pablo as well. Thanks, Arman, for your insightful comments and speaking about your journey. That was very interesting for me. I always like to hear stories of our customers or other e-residents who share the experience of working in Estonia. And thanks to everyone who's been asking us questions in the chat, in the Q&A section. That was a pure pleasure for me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a really lovely rest of the day, or if you're just starting your day, have a cup of coffee and get on with it. But thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you, I think next month we're going to do a special Spanish webinar. So if you're a Spanish speaker, stay tuned to register for that on our events calendar. And then in December, we'll be back with our usual holiday special live Q&A. So that's all, I think. Thanks all, and have a really nice rest of the day.